Whether you're a committed gearhead or just a casual fan of cars, you have to respect the iconic Porsche 911. It's an automotive legend that Porsche has kept alive to this day, and the 2023 model is just as exciting as any other iteration of the 911. In this video, we'll be talking about the 2023 Porsche 911 and going through its coolest features. But before we start looking at the features, we have to pick a variant. This is a 911 we're talking about, so of course, we have three different models to pick from. There's the base 911 Carrera, the all-rounder GTS, and then you have the more performance and track-oriented GT3 and turbo models. Going to the high-performance version usually means losing features, so we'll be sticking to the GTS model. Now, just because you've passed on the high-performance versions of the 911 doesn't mean you have a slouch car. As usual, you get a set of twin-turbo flat-six engines putting out 473 horsepower. You have some customization options, like being able to reject the all-wheel drive version for a real car with rear-wheel drive. There are also three body types available: the standard coupe, a cabriolet convertible, and a targa. And of course, you can reject the PDK dual-clutch automatic for a 7-speed manual. It's a Porsche! Come on! Alright, we've got your 911 GTS right here. Let's take a closer look. So, as you walk around the outside of this car, the first thing you'll notice is the styling. Porsche knows better than to fix what isn't broken, and this is unmistakably a 911. The big styling change this time is the use of black as an accent color. You'll find black coloring on the headlight surrounds, the grille trim, and the wheels. The coolest use of black, though, is the rear light bar. It's been tinted black, giving the rear end a more contrasty look when the lights are off. In general, black is the ultimate accent color, and these touches will look good on any paint job you go for, though white is certainly our favorite. Speaking of the wheels, if you pay attention, you'll notice that the new GTS has received a lot of hand-me-downs from the turbo model. You won't be able to miss the giant red brake caliper with the Porsche brand. That's right, the GTS gets the turbo's brakes now. Also, in the same vicinity is the center lock tires, which replace the usual lug nuts. The center lock tires are literally all about the racetrack. They allow for faster pit stops. So, while the GTS isn't supposed to be a track model, it's got a few track credentials. Okay, we get that you're super excited. It's time to unlock the door and hop in. The first thing you'll notice when you get into this car is the seat. With plush leather sides and a nice Alcantara seat in back, you'll never want to get out. There's also Alcantara on the rim of the steering wheel, which will feel really nice as you nestle your hands around the iconic Porsche emblem. And what else do you see past the steering wheel? An honest-to-goodness analog instrument cluster? In 2022, we get that the screen-based gauge clusters have their benefits, but you can't beat the classic look of analog. And classic is a real watchword when it comes to the Porsche 911, so we really appreciate this touch. Looking around this interior, you really get what you paid for with the new 911. True to the GTS's placement in the lineup, the interior blends luxury and race aesthetics. While this isn't actually a car that you would race, the race is an integral part of 911's heritage. If you're buying a car like this, you'd want to honor its racing roots. Next, we have a more in-depth look at the features. Although the foundations of this car are pretty old, it has a lot of tech and features that you'd expect from a car of this class in 2023. One thing it's missing is some of the sound dampening that Porsche added to the car in the previous model years. Why would they do this, you ask? Well, it's a sporty car, of course. You want to listen to that beautiful exhaust note as you drive around. If you want the ultimate in Porsche luxury, you'd be looking at a Taycan or a Cayenne. But what does this car have? Well, it has inherited the infotainment system from the electric Taycan. That's a real boon because Porsche really polished up their infotainment interface for that car. And while it isn't a Tesla tier, it's still pretty good, a lot better than other cars in the 911 category. You've also got drive modes, along with the standard normal sport and eco. You also have the PSM sport mode. PSM is Porsche's trademark stability control system, and going into the normal sport mode usually turns it off. If you're an experienced racer, that's what you'd want. But for less savvy drivers, turning off stability control can increase the risk of spinouts. PSM sport mode allows you to have it both ways. You get the fun experience of the sport mode without turning off stability control. It's a neat thing for people who just want to push their car to the limit for fun. Maybe cooler than the PSM Sport mode is the Sport Response mode, which is activated by a button in the middle of the drive mode selector dial on the steering wheel. You know, sometimes you're driving along in your fancy car and some chump on the road messes with you. The Sport Response feature activates Sport mode, as well as the Sport suspension, and it dials up the car's exhaust note, all for a period of 15 seconds. We know what you're thinking. Did Porsche add a feature specifically so drivers can annoyingly overtake other their drivers? And yes, that's exactly what they've done. Speaking of the sporty suspension, this car is as low as any sports car. That usually means you're gonna be worried all the time about going into potholes or up the curbs. Luckily, Porsche has you covered. The car comes with an axle lifter, and you've probably seen one in action. With a push of a button, the car will rise an inch or two and allow you to clear obstacles. It doesn't put the car on stilts, but it's a useful feature to have on a car that's meant to be driven on the roads and kept pristine. Enough talk, time to drive. When you put the pedal to the metal in the new 911, one thing that really becomes clear is that this is a driver's car. That hasn't always been the case with the 911. For a few model years, this car had an eye toward being more luxurious. But we've talked a lot about the features in this car, and they've all come together to make an incredible driving experience. It's no surprise that you get snappy performance from the engine, but what is surprising is the role played by the suspension in the handling of the car. This thing is super precise, without a hint of floatiness or vagueness. The car also has the brakes and wheels from the track-focused turbo, which just adds to the excellent handling. We do have something we want to point out about this engine. It's a sports car engine, but it's not a gas guzzler like you might expect. That might be something you're thinking about when buying a car this year. And you can rest assured that the 911 has a rather average fuel economy for this vehicle class. Alright, we've looked at a lot of features, and only one question remains. Should you buy this car? The new Porsche 911 retains its status as one of the most desirable cars out there. It's got great performance, of course, but it doesn't skimp too much on creature comforts and luxurious touches either. This isn't the car to get if you want a high-tech and futuristic car. You can certainly spend this kind of money elsewhere and get a car that acts as a technological hub on wheels, but that isn't what the 911 has ever been about. And if you want that from your car, you wouldn't be considering this one. What you should know is that despite the nods towards the 911's racing roots, the GTS model is actually a pretty good daily driver. Sure, there's only 2 seats, but they're nice seats, and you do get a pretty decent amount of storage space. Combined with the fuel efficiency, the 911 is a lot more practical than it had to be. The Porsche 911 is an experience, and the company has designed the car in a way to offer this specific experience to customers who want it. If this is your dream car, it'll be well worth the around $137,000 you have to shell out for the GTS model. But you're not lacking options at that price tag, so you really have to want what the 911 has. Our opinion? We want to drive this car right to our garage. That's a wrap for this video. Are you convinced to race to your nearest Porsche dealer and grab a new 911? Or do you think that Porsche could do better, or has done better before? Let us know in the comment section below. And don't drive off without liking, sharing, and subscribing.